Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. How's everyone keeping? Do say hi in the chat. Let me know you're there. Let me know. I have some. Decided to let a bit of music play. Set the tone, so to speak. Let me know if you can hear it alright. The amount of sound settings. So I need to know that it's alright in your end. Where's my old shotgun? There you are. There you are. Who do we have today? Great. Let me know if it's too loud or not loud enough or whatever suits you. Hey Rachel. Hey. You guess the Baba man. You need to just simplify the names a little bit for me. That would be lovely. I know it's a lot to ask. Too much to ask, in fact. But I would appreciate it personally. It's not, just saying. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Karen. Karen Kumar. Or is it Karan? Karen. The name Karen is here, but it's spelled with an E. I don't know, is it pronounced the same? Cheers, Mohammed. Chris, hello. How are you? Teach it. I'll do my best. Yeah, perfect, great. Derek, how goes it? Goes well. Dragging the devil, as they say. Dragging the devil by his tail. So just take it easy for a first minute or two and we'll have a little chat, but just to let people join. So by popular demand I have changed my UI, and I just changed it just before the stream. I was like, do I not? So I thought I like to have as much canvas space available as possible. I like to have plenty. Like, if it was up to me, it'd be nothing. And I did have it like that for a while. I had nothing up the top up here. I had nothing at all. I just had the tools on the side. And I had a bunch of shortcut keys, and I did that for like a year. And after a while I started adding one or two, and once you add one or two, it kind of shortens. It kind of takes up that whole section of the UI, that like whole bar of the UI anyway. So then I just started adding stuff into it, because why not? It's empty space at that point. But everyone wanted to see my brush, so now you can see it. It's up here in the top right corner at all times. So hopefully a lot of people kept asking that over the last however long I'm streaming with Pixologic, a year or so. And so here we are, finally we've reached it. Through great reluctance we got there eventually. So I just put everything at the top, so that way the bar is thick anyway, and then free the space down here, and hopefully that works. But I might, you might catch me here and there like, where's that button? Because now I've packed everything up the top, which is not necessarily ideal, but it's, it is nice to have that there. I know for you guys it is nice, especially anyone starting out in ZBrush. I can understand why you'd want to see what brush I'm using, that's fair. So I hope that'll please whoever was asking for that, because it was a good few years. Yeah, it's tricky. Rachel, you're saying there you have a hard time finding a good layout. It is tricky. I always lean towards, like I said, like as much space as I can, the least amount of UI I can get away with. And really, when you're trying to come to a UI that suits you, it really is something that develops over time. The more tools you use, you find like, oh, I use Dynamesh a lot, or I use ZRemesher a lot, or blah blah blah, and you can either make it a key binding, which I do with a good few things, or stuff like close holes. I use that fairly regularly, and I don't want to have to, like, it's not too big a deal. So I'll just move this mic a little bit out of the way. I don't want to be hitting it. will use something like close holes fairly regularly, and I don't want to have to go into like open geometry and then open modify topology and then get things like delete hidden, close holes, mirror and weld, all of those kind of things. So I'll just throw them up here. If it's kind of buried a little bit, if I have to open more than, let's say, 2 sub menus, then and I use it, then it's going on the UI. Depending on how much space I have as well, so I'll prioritize a little bit, but it develops over time. You know what I mean? Start with something, and then just as you see fit, just add things to your UI and let it develop that way. If you want to make your own, I mean, there's lots of places you can download. Like lots of artists have their UI available online and stuff. Mine is on my Discord, which I've given the link to before. I can give it again here. I'll drop it into the chat. So that link, that's just the link tree. So that'll just give all social media stuff and a link to my Discord, like an invite link to my Discord if you want to get in that. Even just get the UI if you want. It's up to you. Wonder Woman was amazing. Yeah, so I really want to continue with Wonder Woman, but I find it less productive to do. I find it a little bit less productive on the streams to do more complicated sculpts. Not that it's not necessarily a really complicated sculpt, but to chat with you guys, which is what I get. I enjoy that most. I enjoy that most about the streams, because like I can sculpt anytime, but doing the streams, like the nice thing is I actually get to chat with you guys. So I don't get as much done from chatting, so the kind of something less complex where I can still show you guys the principles of what I'm doing tends to be the nicest middle ground. And I actually recently came across, let me double check here so I have so Francesco, I'll drop his name into the chat here as well, Francesco Guarini, I hope I'm not butchering that name, but do you know what, in fact, it's actually, I posted on my Instagram, for anyone following my Instagram, I posted that I'd be using these designs for the next while. You can see it here. I'll put his Instagram link into the chat if you're interested, because he has some really nice dynamic designs that are great for sculpting. There we go. So I'll drop it in the chat there. So make sure and follow him. He has some really cool designs that are great for sculpting, not overly complicated but very dynamic, which make for really appealing designs, and is perfect for this. So I found them, you can see them here. So this is the full page, and it's traditional as well. So I was thinking of just tackling all of these over the next, bunch of streams, which could be really fun because they're very dynamic. There's complex shapes, there's simple shapes, there's the primitive shapes are quite strong. So, and I thought that's kind of what struck me first, because I thought that would be great to show you guys how I would tackle that. And there's not too much hair. There's a bit on some of them. Today we're going to do this one because it's a really, really obscure kind of abstract shape for the head, which is what I see a lot of people lose a little bit when they actually translate from 2D to 3D, and you lose some of the appeal if you do that. You lose the feeling coming off the 2D when you kind of, you don't reach that dynamic shape. You kind of simplify the shape, or what you're really doing is you're getting stuck in your knowledge of what a head shape is, and so you're struggling to break from that, from what you've learned about, you know, the structure of a head and stuff, or could be a nose or an ear or whatever, and it can make things less dynamic, a little bit more stiff, and you lose a lot of appeal, and it's just getting more and more comfortable and more and developing your eye more, so that you're really looking at the design. And that's, if you want to work in this industry, if you don't already, or, you know, if you want to be successful in the industry, then you as a character modeler, then that's a really good skill to have, especially because, you know, some art directors aren't too stringent to the 2D. They'll get to the 3D stage and what you have, and then they'll develop from there at times, but I would say probably most of the time they're going to want you to really nail that 2D, so it's really important. It's personally I prefer to work a bit more loose rather than being held too tightly to the 2D. Prefer to catch the feeling of the 2D, you know, catch the major strokes, and then develop the 3D. You know, make the 2D, catch the feeling, and then, considering you're in a different medium, you're now in 3D, it's nice to kind of develop it a little bit further from there to really make it as appealing as it can be now in 3D. So you might be slightly changing some shapes, adding or taking away some volumes to bring it further in the fact that it's 3D, to you know, take advantage of the fact that it's 3D. So let's get that out of the way. So keep that over there. Let me rejig some stuff around here so I can make the most of my monitor space. There we go. Eyes are very talkative today, I love it. Yeah, so definitely go follow that guy if you don't already. If you're looking for some nice 2D to sculpt, it's exactly the kind of stuff you'd be looking for. There's an interesting question I just spotted as was going down. Hey, Lord Luigi, who I seen. I can't remember how to pronounce your name, man. João Pedro Camara. Just went for it. Stuck a leap of faith. Really good sculptor, by the way. He's on Instagram. Follow him. He's in the chat there. You can see him. Go follow him if you haven't already. He's a great sculptor. He's in my Discord. And yeah, he's top notch. So I seen a great question there. Do you ever worry about overusing your workflow and not using new workflows? Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's part of being an artist. You're always worried about a lot of things. And one of the big things I think a lot of artists worry about is, are you stuck in some way? Which is, you know, you don't want that, obviously. In any aspect, you don't want to be stuck. What I'm worried more about is basically what I was saying a second ago, is sometimes do I sacrifice certain design because I want to indulge in anatomy, which is why it can be great to do something even more stylized than this, even more graphical than this design, because it pushes you away from that, give you some practice to push you out of that kind of thing. But in terms of workflow, sometimes I guess so, but not. I don't think I worry about that too much now, because I think I'm pretty open now. We're immediately having this problem. There you go, target polygon count. I feel like I had another one. Oh, adaptive size is to the left of it. So this is my for ZRemesh. I'll actually just give him a neck by just duplicating that mesh and pulling it over rather than adding in a new one. It's just quicker. I'm pretty open to adding and taking away from my current workflow. I mean, there's times where I think maybe I could delve into other workflows more, but to be honest, at a certain point there's only so much you can change in your workflow. Like, what I know I don't want to do is start getting into just like starting with a sphere and just using Dynamesh and pulling out Dynamesh, or using Sculpting Pro, because I started out doing that when I started using ZBrush, and I developed into this workflow just by feeling the restrictions of that workflow, of the like the Dynameshing or Sculpting Pro workflow. And not to say that this is less restrictive in general. It depends on what you're sculpting and the style you're doing and that kind of thing. And the style that I'm working in mostly is it's always at some level stylized. It's between like this kind of really, it's between like very cartoony style, which I love. I tend to jump between a really cartoony style, like kind of, I love like 90s cartoon, you know, really dynamic, simplified shapes. I would say more modern cartoons are less dynamic, much more, I don't want to say just simplified, because it's more than that. Not to say less effective though. Still is appealing, but I love sculpting dynamic shapes. And then, or I'll get into like comic type style, which is a bit more towards realism, but is not realism either. You know, it still is quite stylized. And that tends, for me, I find getting those kind of shapes much easier when I work with separate pieces. And from that workflow you can make little changes, and I do. But like I still will try things. Like for a while I tried, instead of Dynameshing together, using what do you call it? Forgotten the name of it. Remesh by union, which does work sometimes, and so I have essentially added it to my workflow. It was actually suggested to me by Shane Olsen, who's one of the other Pixologic streamers, and if you don't know him, he's a great artist, and he also runs the 3D character workshop, which is a great place for any people starting out in ZBrush to get involved in. It's a big community, and there's tons of content now, and I work with him a little bit as well from time to time, or have done. He suggested that to me, Remesh by union, and then he just uses Sculpting Pro to kind of finesse from there, where I prefer to, I tried it, and I did try it, and after I just found that I preferred, I like having the lower subdivision levels still. So I tried it, it worked, but just the fact that I lost those subdivisions from just, you know, the nature of using Sculpting Pro instead, I went back to using Dynamesh, sometimes Remesh by union if it's applicable, because they're not the same. And then you know, reprojecting my detail instead of just using that high poly to sculpt into to do my final sculpting. So let's get a little here and here. So I'm just throwing volumes in now to get a feel for where things are. Basically, that's all I'm trying to do. Make a like a mannequin version of the sculpt, and then I can use those pieces to sculpt on. So it's kind of this angle-ish. So what will be tricky with this is the fact that it's not like if you somehow turn this 2D into a 3D form, like automatically, let's say, it wouldn't be symmetrical, because you can see here this cheek comes all the way out. So if that volume was symmetrical on this side, then there'd be a big volume here sticking out towards the camera, which it isn't. So the mouth is completely asymmetrical, and it doesn't. If I was to do this in 3D and then this on this side, it's not gonna. It's gonna look like he has a misformed face, because it's gonna be so vastly different on either side. So I'll probably kind of figure out which side I want to lean more towards as I go, just to see which feels better. Maybe try one and the other, see what works best. Thought you're gonna keep to work on once again someday. So thought you're gonna work on sculpting that lady from the last stream. Yeah. I was saying at the start of the stream, I can keep doing that. If you really want me to, if you would rather me to go back to that for the next stream, I can do that. The problem is, the problem I felt during that stream was, as much as I really enjoyed that stream, because I got to, we were chatting a lot and everything on that stream, I didn't get a lot done, because I find if there's a lot to think about in the sculpt, it becomes very difficult during a stream to. I keep thinking that I've no UI because I keep going down here to grab my stuff. It's very difficult to concentrate enough on figuring out the volumes in the sculpt and chat at the same time. And I could take the side of talk less and sculpt more. But as I was saying, I don't enjoy the streams as much when I'm just sitting here sculpting, because I can sit here and sculpt anytime, and if I'm not explaining what I'm doing or talking to you guys, like, if I'm gonna do that, I may as well just record my sculpt and put it on YouTube for you to watch it whenever you want, because it will be the same thing. Where in a stream we can interact together, which is kind of the point. So, which is why I'm kind of tending not to do that. Kind of, while we have the chance to chat to each other and for you guys to ask any questions you want, it's a good time to take advantage of that. So, so that's why I seen these heads, and I thought these would be perfect for the streams. Because although they are complex shapes in themselves, it's not a big full body with a big load of hair to work out and funky pose and all that stuff. So yeah, but it depends too on what you guys would rather see. Sorry, Rachel, what did you're asking there, how did you do that exactly? When you say how did you do that, what did you mean? You're early for once. Welcome, Blitzkrieg. Yeah, I remember you were in the last stream, I think, right? Look forward to seeing your process on those bags under the eyes. I'll probably do them as separate meshes, I think. Let's see. Sometimes I'm making VDMs or IMM brushes. Deformation won't let me relax to grid and says it has to be a 3D plane. But that's exactly what I start with, but it still lets me create and save the brushes. That's strange. If that's what you're starting with, it should work fine. I'm not sure. I'd have to kind of... That's a tricky one to just go off of text. I kind of have to see it to understand why it's doing that. But if it's letting you save the brushes, I'm not too sure. Maybe drop that comment in the comment section and let it be known, so we might be able to test it. Or I can give it a look if possible.
Chances are.
I think Google's trying to get involved there. Thanks very much, Derek. Awesome artist, love the shapes. Thanks for sharing. No problem at all. Daniela is asking, can I stream my rendering process? Yeah, I think I did do that stream a good long time ago now. I did do a stream and I think it's on my YouTube channel. I can't remember if I uploaded it to YouTube or if it was left on Twitch, in which case then it will be gone. I actually want to do a tutorial. At least 2 tutorials that I have in mind. One for just sculpting and going through this process and breaking it down so it's nice and, you know, step 1, step 2, so it's easy to follow. And then another tutorial that will go through, everything else, or maybe everything, or maybe just lighting, or I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I could go through a bit of everything, maybe. I'm thinking. I'm working on something at the moment where I've updated the tools I use and my workflow. So once I have that refined, it might be nice to make a full-on tutorial, start to finish, good meaty job. But I think it's on my, I think there is a stream of me doing some lighting on my YouTube channel that I did on my from a stream on Twitch, but it'd be quite old now. It's still the same process though. Like, you can really make lighting quite simple, you know, especially anyone who's just rendering, like, or not even rendering, like, if you just want to do something simple and get something lit, that's very simple to do. So I could even just do a small tutorial actually on that. Now that I think about it, that might be a nice idea, just to do like a really small tutorial on how to do, you know, simple lighting and how to get like a decent render, so you can really show off your sculpts if you're not familiar with lighting. You know, you can do a lot with just a good HDRI. Even that, it's better than nothing. I don't hate this. It's like it's obviously royalty-free music for YouTube and Twitch and stuff, so you don't get the dreaded demonetized, or your video taken down. And kind of wouldn't use it for ages because I thought this wouldn't be great music, but it's not bad. Like just for sculpting, got like this lo-fi station on it. It's quite decent for sculpting. You need to move this. This volume needs to be. It's overhung. You can't see the nostrils, so I need to. And the thing is, I'll follow that. Like you can't see the nostrils, fine. But if later I'm like, man, that might look better a bit pulled up, then I'll pull it up. If I feel, because at this stage, you know, you can take as great as these designs are, as great as any design is. I'd do it with anyone. Doesn't matter who the designer is. If I feel like I'd like to move something, then I'll move it. I mean, it's my sculpt, so that's what I mean. I don't like to be too tied to it. If I feel like in 3D this might work better this way, you know. And I'm working with the knowledge that like I'm gonna need to, so I'm gonna subdivide this so I can start moving this shape, getting some sort of, getting this a little bit closer to the actual design, because at that resolution it's a little bit low to get. For example, the reason why I'm dynameshing, or sorry, subdividing, essentially is just so I can like pull in, you know, in here. Now, where's my dynamic? Okay, it's up there. Just making sure that's off. Oh, turn it on. I'm just gonna pull this back a little bit. Select the brows because I know they don't have any subdivisions, right? Am I right in saying that? Where is my subdivisions? The things I do for you guys. I'm lost in ZBrush again. Where is my subdivisions? Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, so we're good. Because I want to just add in a sphere for the eyes, which you can't do on a mesh that has subdivisions. So it's going to need to go right in. So I'll just get the move brush. And we're not really, we're only seeing like just less than the bottom half even. And then comes a bit more to a point on this end, on the inside. And I'm thinking about this line that goes around and then looking at where these intersect, the line that these two meshes intersect, because I can use that. And I can continue, you know, where the Dynamesh is, I can smooth the top, smooth out here, and continue that. And this is like rolling up into what would be is the bone here at the temple. I also need to decide how I want this. So if I want to do, give it a bit more resolution. Is your doggo feeling better? Yeah. He's all good now. He's had some time to recover. I'll tell him you asked. I'll bill me. Where's Bill? Is he here? No, it's probably downstairs. Hey Yulia, welcome back. Cheers, thank you very much. Mask this and pull it out. Just leave that like that for a second. I'm not trying to refine anything right yet. Just get a feel for where things are. Excuse me, okay, seems to be good feedback on people wanting to see my rendering process, so yeah, I'll look into that. Maybe even a quick YouTube video might be a good idea, just rather than a full tutorial, just even a quick one to show at least how you can, if you wanted to make something quick. You know, if you don't know how to render at all, and you need to make something to kind of display your model as well. I could definitely do something like that pretty simply and quickly. So just looking from the front there, we'll need to flatten out these sides for that to work from the front, I think. Probably just pull this back. It doesn't feel too out of place. And in the end, probably break the symmetry too and curve this that way slightly, just a little bit. So you have to kind of use your imagination almost as to what this is going to look like down the line. Plan ahead, essentially. You're making shapes knowing that later you're going to break the symmetry and you see, so see how it's nice to have those, because I can smooth with the low subdivision and it'll maintain a nice clean shape. It won't maintain a nice clean shape if I do that on the high subdivision levels. So it really is the secret to keeping it clean. I've said that tons of times before, I know, but lots of people still ask me, so just for anyone who hasn't caught the streams before, this is a chill like. Did you just subdivide? Yeah, I subdivided a minute ago, so I have a couple of subdivisions on the head volume. Sorry, I need to move this out of the way. I don't want to keep hitting that, I'll be annoying you. What are you creating? I'm creating this head here. Oh, you meant the UI. It's okay though, it was from before. Okay. For anyone wondering, if you want to change your UI, you just go into preferences, see config, enable customize. You can use shift and alt to move things wherever you want. You can grab things from like the menu and throw them in somewhere, and then just come in. You can turn that off and hit start. You can save the UI somewhere and then store that config, and that'll be your default configuration then. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And yeah, if you want to get rid of something, just drag it into the middle, and that's it. Simple. No worries. controversial topic there coming up. Some bot or something saying want to become famous by followers, primes and viewers. You should never do that. For anyone who's trying to get an audience on the likes of Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff, you should never do that. Because what happens is you end up with a bunch of bots following you that don't interact with your content. So you have a high number, but that's all you have, because they don't interact with your content. And then what happens is, because your viewers are not interacting with your content, your content is less likely to end up on people's home pages, and so you get less and less likes because the algorithm doesn't like it. The algorithm will stop showing people your content if it doesn't see people interacting with it. So if you have a bunch of bots instead of actual people, so it's very important to keep it's also a reason why it's important to try to make the best content you can. Try to keep your content at a decent quality so people interact with it, because that's how the algorithm recognizes that people want to see what you're doing, so it'll put it in front of more people. No, bots certainly don't count as real followers. No, they don't help at all. And if it is a case that, you know, you're trying to start some sort of business, you want to sell like tutorials or even whatever it is you're trying to do, and you want to build a good following, and therefore maybe that way when you want to make some good content that people will enjoy, that hopefully they'll want to pay. If that's your goal, they'll want to pay for some content that you put out, so you know you can pay the bills by doing this type of stuff. How did that happen? If you have a bunch of bots, they're not buying anything off you, so it's wasted. Even if it's just the case, like for me, building a following and stuff for me is just good, because you can kind of get more opportunities, more people see your work, so you can get more opportunities, and it's also just kind of, you know, you make art, it's nice for people to see it. So again, bots don't look at your work, so again, they're just completely useless. It's more of an ego thing, just to be able to say, oh, look how many followers I have, but it serves no purpose. It's hard to, you know, you want to be proud of your progress and your following, and your feel like your work is deserving of your fans or your followers, whatever. So it kind of spoils it, I think. Well, it would for me. It's not for me. I wouldn't be into it. I'm going to use the Topological brush and just make some eyelids by just drawing out the topology. Why doesn't that work? Oh, I'm on. No, I'm not. There we go. There we go. It's just one side, right? Yeah. Oh. Really quick way, because sometimes I used to like mask and then extract, if anyone familiar with that. And then ZRemesh as low as possible, and then delete a few edges, and that's fine. I mean, you'll get it there, but this, using the topological brush is just quicker for making, you know, quick planes like that for things like eyelids and pockets and things like that. Do you ever use Z spheres to create topology? I don't personally, no. I've tried it before, but no, it's not the kind of, it's not the workflow that I rested on personally. But again, not to say it's wrong either. I don't not do it because I think it doesn't work, but just. Let's get these ears somewhat. I'll figure out where that jaw is. What kind of neck would this guy have? He'd have a big fat neck, wouldn't he, really? Have a skinny neck. He'd nearly be going straight into his chest. It's good to have. I'm putting this here because I need to see what the head is sitting on. It's good to have a relationship between your shapes. So again, I'll probably ZRemesh this again now. I'm just trying to get where the landmarks are, what's happening and where. Been light with the clay build-up. Just pull back that volume and make it smooth. A low subdivision. Just mixing between smooth and alt smooth, so going to smooth and then lifting off the shift. And it'll keep smoothing, but it will average out the volume rather than like polish it essentially. So just getting that volume above the nose, above the bridge of the nose. So I'm just using my anatomy knowledge here of how the temple wraps around up towards the top of the head, and then there's like, you know, you got bone and muscle that kind of comes down from out here and down towards the center, where at the top of your nose. just to, because I need some information to inform what shape I want to go with. I can't just pick a random one. So where else are you going to draw that from other than anatomy? So you can imagine now as we go in, you know, we get the mouth in, and then once we get the mouth in, we get that like overbite, and then, you know, you start adding those lumps and bumps on the nose and stuff, and how quickly it can come together. I want to get this. So what I'll do is see the topology, use my ZRemesher or Z modeler, mask, edge loop complete. That's going to select that whole bottom edge loop. Control hit the canvas, and then when I use the move brush, I'm only moving that bottom because the top is masked. Could have just masked the top, you know, happens. So it gets thinner. The eyelid gets thinner, you see on the inside? So push that into the head, and then pull this out and pull it down. Of course I can use dynamic as well if I want. So what I'd like to do at this point is uncrease, put in my own edge loops so I can control where. And they're support loops, for those of you who don't know. And the idea is, see if I take this one away, see how I lose so much more there? Add that in, doesn't move. So it's stopping it from moving. You're putting it there to stop other things from moving around. And then I can just hover over a polygon, extrude all polygons, pull that way in, flip, because I'm pulling it backwards, so it's reversing them. And then add an edge loop in here, and back here. And we're just building the bits up. Get this shape working a bit better. So I'm going to pull this out too far with the Damien standard and ZRemesher law. How would you merge the subtools into a complete mesh while maintaining the polygroups and the topology? Well, remesh by union would be the best bet there. So you can see that topology. Give you a quick example here, and then you can see that topology. Stick that in there like so, and then when this, actually let's try it with symmetry on. I always turn symmetry off. Remesh by union here. There you go. See. So now they're part of each other. They're actually welded together, but they've maintained the same topology. But it depends, because I generally use sub-D modeling because I work in animation. In games you wouldn't. But if I subdivide that, it's gonna have all this kind of dirty marks from this kind of topology. So it kind of depends on the function, what you need from it. But it's definitely effective. It's a really nice tool. lot of people will, you know, compare tools, and for me, for the most part, you can't really like compare like Dynameshing to or Remesh by Union, but they're, you know, there's it's Remesh by Union's better. It can be better for sure. In lots of situations it can be better, and then in some situations it's not. Because it's a different, by nature it's a different, it does its job differently. So you know, if you have a bunch of complex shapes and loads of meshes intersecting each other, sometimes because or Remesh by Union is trying to do it in a more complex manner, it's more open to having faults if you've got loads of meshes that are intersecting in complicated ways, where Dynamesh will just straight up weld everything together and close the holes and all that type of stuff. So sometimes the simpler, more brute force method is the cleaner one. But sometimes using something like using Remesh by Union is definitely the better option, because it can also hold those edges tighter, which can be very, very handy. Just gonna get this broken up here, pull that up. I need to make that eyeball smaller so I can get more, so I can get the eyelid wrapping around it more, which I generally wouldn't want, but for this design it seems more necessary. I was thinking of doing like segments in my streams, you know, like where everyone just says what they're working on right now. Why don't we test that out? Because I'm interested. Because especially, I love the idea of this just being like, you know, like for sure, you know, if you learn a few things, that's great. And that's also, of course, like a big part of the point of this. I'm always really happy to hear someone's learned something or they're following along with the streams and stuff. That's always really cool. But I always imagine that really the big, like, well, for me, if I'm watching a stream or anything, it's usually because I'm working. It's usually because I'm working, and you know, it's just kind of someone to have there chatting away in the background or alongside me or whatever. So that's always what I imagine a lot of you guys are probably doing. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. I'm only basing that off my own experience, but I'd be interested to know if you guys are doing any work and what work you're doing. We move the canvas over a little bit there by accident. If you ever move the canvas by accident, see, sometimes like you'll hit spacebar and go to like do this, but what'll happen is you'll put the cursor down first and then hit spacebar and move, and then you'll actually move the canvas. And if you don't know, if it's up here and you don't know how to get it back, that's what you do. You put the cursor down and then hit space, and you can move the canvas. You can also just go up to document and hit new document, and it'll ask you if you want to save this one. Don't. It's not about the actual file. It's just asking if you want to save this canvas, which you don't need to. It'll give you a blank canvas, and as soon as you drag out, you'll get your model back. Here, I can show you, just so you know. So, new document. Nope. As soon as I drag out, there it is. There we go. Simple. So you can see now, because of the nature of this shape, getting this to work from the front is going to be a trick. You know what I mean? That's where the crux of this is going to be. I'm using climbing language. I got into climbing recently, and that just kind of fell out of my face. The crux, which is like a climbing term, the most difficult part. Even getting the mouth in, because now we have to, we're kind of forced to decide where we have to really get these volumes in, and we'll need to pull that back. And use masked lasso. Gel. Remind me, Joe, am I saying your name right? Because I feel like I'm not. Anyway, saying trying to find a better way of sculpting hair. I find it to be so tricky. It is very tricky. That's why you find it tricky. I find it tricky. It's always difficult, especially, you know, you kind of figure out a way to kind of make it look good, and then you're trying to do a sculpt, and it's very different style, and you know it's an uphill battle here because it's very complex by nature. Same with like 4 on animals, can be very difficult. I tend to try to approach it in the broadest strokes possible. Get the big shapes in first, get that working, get that silhouette working, and then slowly start to break it up. Close enough. Okay, fair enough. I don't know, because I know, like, I work with lots of people from all over the world, and sometimes they'll say something like pole, you know, which is more just their accent. You know, I don't even think about it. It doesn't bother me at all. But I always feel real like, no, I have to say their name right. It's just feels rude or something. We could even break, really, we could actually break this mouth part, the lips kind of out into separate pieces too. Rather than trying to mask everything, and because now getting this nice flat shape underneath is going to be very difficult. So we could go up top. We can always get our subdivisions back. That's the best way to do it. So Control W or polygroup. So you can see that's polygroup now. And then we could polygroup all of this. Delete the lower subdivision levels, and where are you? Group split. Now I want to get rid of these jaggies. So I'll just go to deformation, polish by groups. So polish by groups. Polish by groups. And now we'll just ZRemesh these a bit lower, make them easier to handle. Working on character designs for an indigenous, indigenous project. Very cool. Working on renders for an architecture project. Very nice. 25 better way of sculpting hair. Yeah. Yulia, are you in architecture? Or is that just something you're practicing? I'm about to finish a character modeler today. I spent time with a render setup. I posted the progress on Discord. Very nice. Hello, egg. ZCrew 3D. I'm always lurking another stream whilst I work. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. You might always pick up little things. You hear something, you're working away and you hear them say something, you're like, oh, that's interesting, and you can pick up a little something. How'd you learn Substance? Same way I learned ZBrush, just YouTube, practicing. Watched, simple YouTube videos. Oh, to get rid of it. So, okay. So watch how this doesn't work so well. And I'll tell you why now. So see the way it's doing this? It's doing all this weird stuff. That's because of these jagged edges. Because it's seeing this and it's trying to maintain it. So watch if I do this now. So I've polished that off. Right? With polish by groups. And now I ZRemesh. Easy peasy, you might say. So I can also actually, just to make life a bit easier, it's already on that, I can just extrude all this in and flip, just to give me a thick mesh so that when I pull them together there's something to actually, oh look, I grabbed something down here, that's going to be a pain, because that's in the back of the head, so I'm going to have to go fix that. Let's do that instead, so I can get that flat bottom. Missing it. Oh, it's not. Oh, it is. So just mask. Should usually, yeah, there you go. Delete hidden. It's not a big deal. that's definitely on the bottom, so we don't need to remesh it again. Just want that thickness. Alright, so now we can get those intersections a little bit easier. And then once we Dynamesh later, we'll be able to, so we can control the straight lines and so on. Get the overlapping where we want it. And then once we Dynamesh later, we can just smooth where we need to smooth. So pull that all the way into the cheek. Pull that all the way into the cheek. So again, like that, we're still kind of making a kind of mannequin. Flip that. So these are the more complex shapes that you can sometimes go a bit wrong on, that you need to really pay attention to and really focus to see what's happening in your 2D. And as you go, you'll see, alright, I need to change this, I need to change the position, because everything is relative to each other. But now that we've separated this into 3 shapes, it'll make it a lot easier for us. Where's remesh by union? So when you go to your transform, so hit W, and then up here in this cog, just hit the cog, and there's remesh by union. Sorry, Gabrielle, I missed. What's the name of that tool? What was the tool that I used? Can you describe it? I'm not sure which one you were talking about now. Sorry about that. Didn't see your question on time. I can post the new UI on Discord, yeah. No problemo. Get that So something I can do, I'll try this. So I'll use a snake hook brush and go up to, I have it up here, where is it? I know you're here. It's hiding. I'm looking for AccuCurve. Maybe did I get rid of it? By accident. Maybe. So now I have to remember where it is in here. AccuCurve. It's in. Nope. Nope. Definitely not. No. Absolutely not. No, tried that one already. Tried this one already too. Let's just double check. Would mean masking. Where is it? Can I even remember where AccuCurve is? Do I still have it? I'm sure I still have it up there. Good for you to know where it is though, because it's very useful. AccuCurve is in thought it was in modifiers, but it's making a liar out of me. No. Unless it was moved. That's actually super handy to have topological. If you have meshes that are put together but they're different, if you have subtools that are collapsed together but they're actually separate meshes, then having topological on will mean you'll affect one, whatever one you touch first, that's the one you'll affect, and not, it won't do anything to, the brush won't affect the others around it. Damn, I can't find AccuCurve. Who knows where? Brush, curve, third on the left, I believe. Curve. Oh, it's on. I wasn't expecting it to be on. Very good, good man. Or, sorry, I just assumed that. Oh, it is Blitzkrieg. Well, yeah, that could be a girl too. Fair play, Blitzkrieg. Good job. Alright, so perfect. Let's... I'm sure I had it when it was down here, but maybe I accidentally removed AccuCurve. Right, well, let's add it then. Perfect, time to show you. Brush, curve, and we'll throw it in there. Boom. Turn that off. Store config. Yes, please. Done. Alright, so if I use snake hook, which is what I have currently, it'll do that. Okay, if I put on AccuCurve, you see, so it's essentially increasing, imagine the smoothness of your brush as a curve like that, right? So without it on, it's a nice kind of even slow slope of a curve. If you imagine like how the intensity of the brush, because obviously you've got like, it falls off as it goes out. So towards the middle is where most of the movement will happen when you pull something with the snake hook or the move brush. AccuCurve, instead of having this nice curve, when you turn it on, it turns the whole curve into a point. And you get that? Which can be handy when you want to make little edges. I'm tempted to use this as a separate piece or something though, because it's gonna be all, because it's not really conducive to the front. draw in again where the bags are. Sometimes it can be good to think about when you're placing something, place it, or doing a curve or whatever, push it further than you think it is. You can always peel it back if it's too far. If you don't go far enough, it can often leave room for improvement. Or missed opportunity, essentially, for a nice dynamic shape. Just grabbing that lasso. Just using the arch of my hand to get a nice curve. Hey Luke, how are you, buddy? Luke's another one of the sculptors on, Luke just dropped in, he's one of the other sculptors on Pixologic. If you haven't seen his work before, go check him out. His streams are great too, does some really nice work. Very talented artist. Do make sure and have a look if you haven't already. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments here. Egg's asking for a recommendation for a good Retopo tutorial. That's a tricky one, actually. Because I learned a lot about Retopo working in the studio. I never really, and from trial and error, from working in the studio. So I'm not I mean, if you can get the chance to work, forgive me, I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly, but in English it's just bluntly Sergi Caballero. I mean, most of you will probably know him. He's like one of the best. And I hear his name pronounced properly from time to time, and then it goes over my head. I don't know how it's pronounced properly in Spanish, but anyway. Let me get it for you here. When it comes to Retopo, he's like cream of the crop. Really, really, really good. There's his website. I'll drop it in the chat. There you go. Any Spanish people there might be able to correct me on the pronunciation. I'm an Irish barbarian, so I'm not very good at that particular thing. He is you know, as good as it gets, so you'll find any stuff from him. Even just looking at he has some on his website there where you can see the topo. I've done that, looked at that. Maybe I can do something on that as well at some point. Just simply go over like some things in topology. I said before I'd use a base mesh. Actually, I should have done that by now. Actually, to be honest, that kind of slipped my mind. To go over like how topology works for animation. So the idea here is, like I said, we're kind of making, it's like making a mannequin, you know what I mean? You're just trying to get the right shapes in there. So we're gonna have to cheat some things if we want to. If I bring that in close, it's gonna look really weird if I increase the volume of that so much that it matches the outside here. If I make that really thin, this is super thin but super extruded. Volume might look a bit strange. No, it kind of already does. I think this needs to be flatter. So using that lower subdivision there helps a lot. Just looking at the other side as well here, while just to see how that 3/4 is going in this silhouette. So I'm starting to feel like I need to Dynamesh soon so I can start to see these shapes together. And kind of clean this up now. So I can start to get a better sense of how everything fits together, but there still is, what I don't want to do is Dynamesh too early and then have a bunch of really messy geo that I need to clean up at that point, because I can't, because obviously they're not separate, so it's going to be a bit more, it's going to be T-pose mesh. Now I can move. Bits around. So you see, in order to get this over here, see how like I said before, it's the kind of crux of the problem solving on this one. It's the common, it's the thing. A lot of people don't kind of see that when they see Stylized and see like a simplified version of anatomy and think, well, therefore it's simpler. But there's actually a lot more problem solving because of this type of thing. Or I should say there's often a lot more. And you could just, you know, make it work from one angle, but personally it's not something like, it's not how I just like to do it. I prefer to get it working the way it should be. If I was doing it for like production. With the mouth still separate elements, it gives him a nice rank base stop motion vibe. Oh yeah. Yeah, it does actually, yeah. ZRemesher is pretty cool, but I always have to take it in Maya afterwards to remove some of the spirals. I don't know if there's a better way really. You can use polygroups to kind of control the flow of your ZRemesher a little bit. But I generally don't use ZRemesh for like final topology. It's more just to give me a nice low subdivision level and a nice edge flow that will essentially just follows the flow of the forms, which is what it's kind of made to do. Use an alt and pinch just to catch that little angle there if I can. Just do it all the way across, see what happens. So again, it's little things like there's an angle here, right, in the 2D, but when you add shadow to this, real shadow, that will mean that there's a crease like you're seeing here in there, which isn't always included, and sometimes the angle here is nice, but the crease that's left behind from the shadow is less So, and so you have to kind of, again, make an executive decision on whether you want to keep that or not. Not to say it's a problem right now, but it can be. Yes, that's what Rachel, yeah, that's what I mean with polygroups. So like, I mean, sometimes it's hard to avoid, but for example, you know, like this could well be a spiral. Yeah, see? So if this might just work. If I do that. And then go into ZRemesher and keep groups and then ZRemesher. I'll just mask the group just to see. Yeah, see? So you're giving it something to so I hope that helps. Polygroups is really the way to go if you want to. You can use ZRemesher or ZRemesher guides, yeah. And that can help a little bit too. It'll just kind of tell them where to go, and the more you wanted to follow that, the more you have to put up the curve strength or lower if you wanted to kind of just follow the form more than your curve, than your ZRemesher guides, and then higher to follow that more accurately. Absolutely flew away. Turn off AccuCurve. Sculpt is real sexy. I like that. It'll get there. It's still got some refining to do for sure. But thank you very much. We're getting there. This is so you can see now why I wanted to do these, because the premise is quite simple, or I should say, you know, just doing a head, it's easily digestible, but like there's plenty of complex shapes in there and plenty to work out that this doesn't solve for you. and you can kind of you can kind of well, you get to see me essentially working it out on the fly, which is good. And this is where the streams kind of come into play, because I don't know where I seen this recently, but something came up. I may have commented on something somewhere about seeing, like, watching videos on YouTube of sculpting that's sped up, and people think, oh, well, that's what it looks like when, like, professional sculpt, you know, especially starting out. I found the same when I was painting, when I used to paint more. People see, like, it's just a lot of it on YouTube, you know, there's a lot of speed sculpting, and a lot of videos that are, like, sped up by 5, 6, 7, 8 to, like, 12 times, and they don't see all the problem solving. It looks like all the problem solving is just being, you know, blasted out, and it's just not the reality at all. And it's important, especially starting out, to see that, because it'll stop, you know, you can get discouraged. You can get discouraged because you can't go that fast, and then on the other side of it, you can be trying to go that fast, and it's not working for you, and you can't get into the sculpt because you're not giving yourself enough time. And that's not going to do you any favors either. So I'm going to try this as a separate shape here. Do I have AccuCurve on? No. And again, because we have a low poly, we can just use that lasso tool. Just, we don't really want this happening, so really quick, just delete it and re-add it in. So look at that lip, weird kind of lip. Eyelid is, the eyelid kind of thicker on the edge, on the in the center, and you can exaggerate that. Depends on the style, but you can exaggerate that a lot on a stylized character. That chunky feel. subdivide it once. Just give me a little bit more topology there. Right, let's do 3 subdivisions. 5. A little edge. Subdivide that. Use the move, turn on AccuCurve. We can pull out these edges here. Delete the subdivision. So delete the subdivision on that. I can even just draw on this. Extract, accept. ZRemesher super low. Trice 3D, welcome. Anyway, new character here looks creepy. Yeah. Creepy and it owns a white van sort of way. Hey Louis from Mexico, cool. Sunny Mexico. That is awesome. It's really cool, the idea, I don't know, of like, you know, like a lot of yous, like there was a time when I started out sculpting, I never thought I'd be streaming to people all over the world. It's nice. Nice to remember that sometimes. Remember the roots. Innit? Blasted that area in. So you can see what we're doing at 2 hours. Almost 2 hours. Well, less than 2 hours actually, because we were yapping away. Say I was yapping away. I'm putting some of the blame on you guys. So in just over an hour and a half, give or take, we've got everything we need in there. We can Dynamesh this, and we're almost home. You know what I mean? Once we Dynamesh this, it's just scouting some bits around and kind of refining what we've already got there. We've got all the main volumes in, which is the vast majority of the work. That's the big I'm gonna keep using it actually because I quite like it. The crux of it, the main part. Just define this jaw in here a little bit because you can see it here, and you can see see the gels and stuff. Like we can really get into that once we dynamesh it together. You know, I do wish sometimes that I had a bit more time to do longer streams. I have, we were talking about what projects we were doing at the moment. I'm doing Mr. Freeze at the moment. I have to render him, and I'm doing, so he's textured, so he's covered in 4K maps for everything: roughness, normals, texture, metalness, then stuff for like displacement, and then shader trickery to make droplets for like condensation, and then fog, and then a ground with an alpha map, and that's got 8K maps on it because it's a big mesh, and I want it to be, I want it to be nice and have a nice tactile feel to everything. But as soon as I add the fog, the renders went from like 20 minutes to half an hour for like a 3K render with high samples. And I have a good machine, I have a really good machine. But still, as soon as I added the fog, it's like 3-4 hours to render a frame. Because every pixel has to be heavily computed. We're going to use a clay polish on that, just to get us where we want it for now. I'm going to pull the back of this head out more. I'm going to go backwards. So we see the way the back of the head lines up more with kind of crease in the ear, and that'll tell me that the crease in the ear should be further down here, in which case the crease in this part of the ear should be higher. So that's what I mean by everything is always relative, and then we'll need to obviously add in a mesh in here, but we won't worry about that for the sec. What we will worry about right now there for now is so we'll just go all high here just to make sure we have everything with the highest subdivision. What render engine do I use? I use Arnold. It's my fave of all the ones I've tried. So I'll have to... I set up a render last night, came back to my computer this morning, and I had restarted, which was fantastic news. So that was useless. So I've got a bunch of renders to do. I think I've got about 4 renders done, but you know, everything from like different angles, close-ups. So there's a lot there to do. It's mad. It can be kind of frustrating sometimes because you finish the sculpt, you finish the texture, and you finish, you know, adding in your little fancy bits, whatever that might be, and you're like shading and stuff, and you're like, great, happy days, ready to go, and then you realize like the rendering stage is just going to take ages, and there's nothing you can do. All you can do is hit render and walk away. And of course, Arnold is using my processor, which I have a really good processor, but they're really heavy renders, so the computer's semi-useless. I can't exactly like sculpt what it's rendering or whatever, because it's just using up too much power. Hiding on me. I'll find you. 10 points for anyone who can tell me what movie that's from. That's that phrase. I'll find you. For animation especially, it takes days. You mean rendering animation? I mean, it always just depends on like what kind of maps and shaders, and obviously if you're rig, what kind of rig you've got, what kind of topology you've got. So many things that will affect your render time. Everything will affect your render time. Wedding Crashers, nailed it. 10 points to Maratsalui. Did I say that right? Camp Rock, no, fortunately not, Rachel. Swing and a miss. Superb render from Arnold, pretty long to render. Yeah, I have tried Redshift and I actually found it wasn't as fast. I know that's a controversial thing to say, but I tested the same mesh with the same kind of lighting, and basically Redshift got to about 20% way quicker than Arnold, but Arnold got to 100% finished render quicker than Redshift. Once Redshift got about 20% in, which was great because I could see, I could get a good idea in the IPR what I was dealing with, but after that 20% it slowed right down and Arnold caught up and passed it out. And plus I'm doing still frames most of the time, and in Arnold I can still do like that. Fog is a new thing that I'm adding in, which is adding huge amounts of time, but like if I can do a render in 20 minutes then I don't need to go faster than that. I'd rather the better result, you know. So as good as Redshift is, for sure, I know plenty of artists. One of my best mates, Rory Bjorkman, and probably the best artist I actually know, uses Redshift to, so definitely wouldn't be knocking it. And it's so people always say that whenever I say people will go, oh, what render do you use? And I say Arnold, and they'll go, oh, have you tried Redshift? Everyone loves Redshift, and I can see why. I'm actually off by quite a bit on a few of these shapes, and this is kind of the time to see that, you know, before you get things put together. You see how close the lip is to the nose there compared to mine? Now that's gonna be, I feel like the trick here is gonna be breaking symmetry now. And that's really what you're building up to, is breaking that symmetry. So I'm just all smoothing here. Aloha, hairy mandibles. Welcome back. If I remember correctly, you were in the last stream, and probably a few before that. Always a pleasure to see some regulars. Garfield 2, A Tale of Two Kitties. Yeah, let's just go with that. I wish that was in that film, with the toilet and everything. Did you start this block out today? I did. I started an hour and a half ago, something like that. From nothing. We're getting somewhere, and now I'm also very conscious of the fact that, like, I need to Dynamesh this to really control these edges, smooth some of them, that kind of thing, to get them working nicely. Especially on a mad looking mug like this, like, you're really, you know, like if you're making Moana, for example, that character, the need to, you don't need to break symmetry, because she's a you know, she's a pretty, she's a pretty character, and she's symmetrical, and she's quite simple. Now I say she's simple, I don't mean, like, her sculpt is stunning, and it's really the subtleties that the crux of that is in. I'm gonna coin that for sculpting. I'm gonna start using that everywhere, and that's really where she shines. Same with most of those characters. But for a guy like this, I mean, to get the feeling of this, like, if you can't break the symmetry, sculpting with a mouse like a weirdo. Now, okay, so there's two ways to approach this next part. So we've got, like, oh, sorry, wrong brush, BDS for Damien Standard. So we can go Damien standard, and we're doing like this kind of thing. Like this kind of thing. Something like that. But we need to do that. Nice flowy strokes. That's very important. Something I've actually never talked about before, I don't think, is like sculpting like a draftsman, you know? Which is funny because you often hear like great 2D artists, great animators like Glenn Keane talking about how you should draw like a sculptor, and here I am talking about sculpting like a 2D artist. But you know, be kind of more delicate with your strokes. None of this stuff, you know, no mechanical movements. And that comes with time, I think, more than anything. And you really, like there, like, I mean, you can't see me so much now. We've lost the daylight, but I'm really doing this from my shoulder, not from my wrist, or not with my finger certainly, but like I'm shifting my shoulder, and the rest of the arm is kind of locked in from that pivot. But yeah, but I'm nearly finished with this Mr. Freeze sculpt, and I'm really excited to post it because it's quite different from my usual. It's a little bit similar to the last post I did with Penny, the girl with the pink dreads. If any of you have seen that, it's similar in terms of detail level. That was all that work. Anyway, right, so you could do it with that, but I don't think I'd actually approach that this way. You could do it with a Damien standard, but I think what I do, because I don't want just a cavity, I don't want just like a valley drawn in. I want flat and then a lip, you know? Is what I actually would like to have. So, yes, please. And once I have that in place, from here, just move. Using Alt to push off the normal. I can even no. Where did I put it? There it is, view mask. I can turn view mask off, so the mask is still there, but I just can't see it. Got rid of it now. No mask. How to get good. How to get good. Multiple layers are stuck in the middle. Yeah, it is 2.5D. But I mean, Are you going to twist the whole face from the drawing? He almost looks like he has like two face, very different, left to right. It is very, yeah. No, I will kind of actually twist the head a little bit, yes, but I'm not going to match the 2D exactly because I want the face to at least somewhat work, like not feel broken at least when I turn it, you know. So I don't want to just make like a flat sculpt just for the sake of matching the 2D. Which is not to say you can't do that. Some people do, just to make a still render. That's fine, but I generally just prefer to try take the challenge of making it work from all angles as much as I can. It's at the very least it's better practice, you know what I mean, because at least you're practicing doing that, because you know, if you're doing it as a job, that's what you got to do. Increase the challenge somewhat. That's why I generally always sculpt at least the head from a sphere as well, and I'll often even do the body too, because it's just good to just keep doing that rather than, you know, going and using a base mesh and then you're always using a base mesh, and that's kind of solving a bunch of anatomy problems for you, and then you're kind of using it as a crutch, you know. You can also kind of, because there's already shapes that are working in a base mesh, it can also affect your final shapes. Now I need to, as much as I didn't want a complete valley, I'd like a little bit more, I think. But something like this I'd often just sit with, you know, this is what I mean about speed sculpting. I'd often just sit and play with it and see, you know, go too far with it and pull it back if it's not working, and try some different things. Assuming I have time. If I'm in production and I don't have time, then you can't necessarily do that, of course. You kind of, in production you can play, you have to play it a little bit safer, which is why it's very important to do personal work, I think, because you don't have to play it safe. You can play around and do things that you're not sure are going to work, and learn from them, and then and that's really what makes you better. If all you do is production work, I think your progression will slow dramatically, in my opinion. Some people may disagree with that, but I think if all you're doing is production models, your progression will be stifled quite a lot compared to if you did a lot of personal work, played with different styles and different ways to do things, even wrinkles, and just see what works. And then next time you're doing a wrinkle in production, you're like, oh yeah, I did that thing last time, that actually worked really nicely. Or that doesn't work. Just as important to figure out. Oh, 20 minutes overtime. Shh, say nothing. We'll be quick. Let's go all high. I'll put everything on the highest subdivision level. Just double check our volumes again real quick like. Turn off dynamic. Wow, that was an abrupt crash. Just closed. Alright, that's a sign. That's like stop now. Let's pull it back open before we pull off. But yeah, that's a sign. Well, anyway, the point is, and we can do it in the next stream. The point is to just especially this volume, because I really need this volume to be part of this volume to properly work it out. If I pull this up, to properly work that out and get that incorporated into the head, I need to Dynamesh that together. So in order to progress, I need at least that to be Dynameshed in, so I can start to get a better idea and refine that head shape a little bit more and get that working, and then I can start Dynameshing the other parts into that, especially like even this here, this lip here from the nasolabial fold, which is what that's called. Well, it's kind of weird because like this is kind of the nasolabial fold, but so is the kind of, well, that's, I guess that's the cheek, and that's technically the nasolabial fold, I guess. Anyway, and then you can start to work the shapes into each other properly and figure out the different planes and volumes properly and how they blend into each other, because that's really it goes from like a mannequin type feel to now it's a character once you get to that stage. That's always a nice stage to get to. And you could even at this point, I'd say you could even break the symmetry. Yeah, well, you could. A bit of that. See how much, like, to get that volume, and I'd have to work out how that cheek over here, if I want to get this volume out here, like I can't do that. I can't bring myself to do that. Even if it looks okay from this angle, I just can't allow that to continue. So I have to find a solution to that, that's difficult. That is difficult because you're really getting into design yourself then. You're not just sculpting. And I personally like to do that. Some sculptors, you know, if you're in a production environment, they'd ask for it to be sent back to the artist to redraw. Hold on, sorry, I'm gonna turn this light on for this. Yeah, there you go. It's a little bit better. They'll send it back to they'll get it sent back to the 2D artist to work that out for them from a different angle, which is fine and it's common practice. Personally, I like to try and work it out myself, again, because it's good practice. It's good design practice. But it really depends on how comfortable you are with that, you know what I mean? Some people, you know, haven't got a lot of practice actually doing that really ever. In which case, you know, fair enough. I need to stop sculpting now because we're kind of out of time, but I kind of just want to keep going, but I won't. Don't. I know what you're like. Real breakers, the guys. But yeah, you can kind of see, even from what I'm doing there, how really breaking the symmetry on this character is very important. catching that like funky kind of funky vibe. But yeah, let's do that. I wonder what it looks like rendered on with a quick old ZBrush render. Let's break this first. Little bandy nose. Yeah, I like to. This is actually because this is quite extreme even for my. Like if I was to draw something myself, I generally wouldn't go this extreme, which is why I tend to jump between doing my own designs and doing other people's, because it gets me out of my own style. I try to be dynamic, but this is very pushed, which I enjoy. That head could probably widen. I don't know how many times now I've said I need to stop sculpting. I can't. Alright. Don't know what this is going to look like. You can kind of see where it's going. So like you know, you need a bit more time to get into to get the Dynamesh parts together and start really figuring that out. So, but yeah, we made decent progress. We got the shapes in there for the most part, just refining them. So you can see. So what was that, like 2 hours? And now it's just playing with the shapes and getting them kind of just refining, playing with the positions of everything and figuring out, you know, what we can make work in this, what doesn't work that we have to change, so on and so forth. Then once we Dynamesh together, we can start going in and getting all these little noodly nice wrinkles and these bits in the lips and the boils and the nose and stuff. And then it really starts to. And you start to get that's the point that I start to get like, oh yeah, this is cool. I always enjoy that stage. It's the payoff, if you like. Look at the head and that. So he was fun. Really enjoyed that now. Yeah, prefer mental hair creation. We may talk about that next time about hair creation. There's 101 ways to do it. They're all both wrong and right. Hair is difficult. I like very much a style. I like the kind of old, drunk, tired boxer with nose pointing a different way and eyes are shiny. Yeah, it's fun to do. This is the kind of dynamic shapes that I like to use, that I love sculpting. It's always fun. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll keep going with this guy for the next stream. Get them Dynamesh together. And try work out those two sides, because that's going to be the real crux of it. So if there's any questions I missed or anything, feel free to drop them into the comments and try get back to you from through there. And if you enjoyed it, give it a like. If you're not already subscribed, please do, because there's not just my streams but all the other guys as well, if you're not already there. And if you want to catch next week's, obviously it would help. If you want to see how this turns out, subscribing would help to get to that. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. So I'm on again in 2 weeks time, same time on a Wednesday. It's 8 p.m. here. I think it's 1 p.m. in like LA time. But I always post it on my Instagram and stuff like that as well. So if you want any of that, there's the link tree once you click on that, it'll just give you a nice straight clean list of links, and you can click on any of them. If you want to follow me on any of them, do feel free. Alright guys, always a pleasure, nice chatting to you. Thanks for we're very chatty today. It's always great to see. Thanks for joining in, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.